Good afternoon and welcome to the first in a series of FTAI Ireland member briefings on changes following the implementation of new regulations contained in the so-called EU Book Mobility Package. The EU regulations on operator licensing, access to the market, driver's hours and tachographs have been revised. Furthermore, a new piece of legislation harmonising administrative requirements relating to local minimum wages for international drivers has now been adopted. The revised regulations and the new directive were first published in the Official Journal of the EU on the 31st of July 2020, and the first changes became applicable on the 20th of August 2020. The timeline of implementation of some of the key points in the mobility package changes include on the 20th of August 2020 related to rest period changes, 20th of February 2022, operator license changes now mean that core business documents must be available at premises. 1st of February today, 2022, cabotage changes now 4-day cooling off period after 3 permitted operations in 7 days. Also from February 2022, of course, posting of workers changes requires proof that drivers are paid the local minimum wage, and the details of these changes make up the content of today's briefing. And from the 20th of May 2022, LCVs and operator licensing changes are applicable where 2.5 ton up between 2.5 ton and 3.5 ton vans which are engaged in international transport operations will require an operator license. So on to today's briefing, I'll hand over to my colleague Paul Maguire, who will provide details of new posting worker requirements and the system upon which operators must now log all postings. And new posting regulations are entering force for drivers carrying out international operations, as we mentioned. The key objectives are to streamline of the posting piece is to streamline and simplify various posting rules that exist across each country in Europe, create a set of minimum rules that exist across each country, and minimum set of standards and standardise the administrative requirements for posting workers across Europe. A posted worker means a driver who for a limited period carries out his or her work in the territory of a member state or a third country other than the member state in which the driver normally works. A posting shall be considered to start when the driver enters the territory of another member state for loading or unloading of goods, and to end when the driver leaves the territory of that member state. Postings can be from 1 day to 6 months, after which they must be reposted. And you'll get more details of that from Paul in a minute. There is an obligation on the operator to pay drivers at least the full minimum wage applicable in each member state while they are working there. In addition, drivers must now register border crossings on digital tachographs. FTAI Ireland have prepared a briefing note for members, and a copy is emailed to all attendees today, as well as a summary of changes contained in the broader mobility package. If you have any questions today, please put them in the chat and we'll try and get to them after the end of this presentation. If we don't get to them, we will email our answers out to everybody in due course. So thanks very much, and over to you, Paul.
Thanks very much, Aidan. Welcome this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul. I'm going to be taking this through. I am going to, first of all, set up our screen. And this is always the bit where we get the gremlins. So now, brilliant. So I'm going to talk you through our posting of drivers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in 2 parts. I'm going to first of all talk you through some of what Aidan has said already, and then I'm going to show you a practical demonstration of how to actually operate the system. So let's have a look. As Aidan said, the mobility package and the posting of drivers kicks in from tomorrow, 2nd of February. And for this, you will need to access the online EU portal to register the details of some of your journeys within the EU, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway before your journey starts. Very, very important. So when we are looking at our system, which journeys must we register? Well, we must register the journey if you're transporting goods between 2 points in Ireland, Iceland, Liechtenstein. This means that you load goods in one point and unload them at another point in any of those countries. Now, this covers cabotage, cross-border operations, and moving goods for your own business use. Now, the definitions, as Aidan said, a posted driver means a driver who, for a limited period, carries out his or her work in the territory of another state or third country other than the member state in which the driver normally works. Now, a posting shall be considered to start when a driver enters the territory of another member state for loading or unloading of goods, and to end when the driver leaves the territory of that member state. As Aidan said, postings can be from 1 day to 6 months, after which period they must be reposted. Now, journeys that you will not need to register. So you won't need to register a journey if you're using a vehicle not carrying goods. In other words, if the vehicle is empty. And if you're carrying goods from one place in Europe, or from Ireland, sorry, to one place in Europe where you can both unload and load goods. And from Ireland to Europe, and you would unload goods and pick up at more than one place. So delivery only, no pickups. So what they're saying here is you can go out full and do multiple drops, but you can't pick up anything. And then from Europe to Ireland, and you load goods at more than one place, so pickups only, but you're not dropping off anywhere. And then from Ireland to a non-European country, but you cannot load or unload while the goods are in Europe. Now, to operate the system. Well, first of all, we have to create an account on the EU portal. Now, you'll need to create an EU login. So what the EU login allows you to do is interact with all systems that operate with the European Union. What it does, though, is the computer system will prompt you to create an EU login when you access the portal. Then you need to create a company account to operate the portal. Inside the company account, you'll need to enter information about the company itself, your transport manager, and all of the drivers that you will be posting to Europe. For the company, the information that you're going to need to create your account, you're going to need your company's name, its address, its country of registration, an email address, VAT number, the registration number, your Irish operator license and community license number. Then for the transport manager, you're going to need to enter that person's details. So you're going to need their name, their office address, email address, telephone number, and their CPC certificate number. Now, you need to upload all of the details for each of the drivers who you plan to post in Europe. Now, there are a lot of details that you have to upload for the drivers, and you can add them in one by one, or you can bulk upload them. There's a template available for this within the system, and I'll show you that when we get to it. So to create an account, you'll need this information for each of your drivers who drive in Europe. So you're going to need their full name, their date of birth, their email address, their home address, their driver license number, their driver card number, an internal reference number. So for example, an employee number. And this is particularly useful if you have, say, for example, 3 or 4 Johnny Murphys working in the company. You will allocate them an internal reference number. They also need the ID document. Now, in Ireland, not having a national identification document, our passport number is what we're going to use. You'll also need the document number, the issue date, and the expiry date, and the country for which it's issued. You'll need the start date of the driver's contract of employment and the applicable law. And in our case, the applicable law is going to be IE, and I will show you that again as we go through. Now, posting a driver. So registering a journey is known as making a posting declaration. So each time you register, you'll assign a driver that you've already registered on the portal. So you have to have all your drivers registered on the portal. You'll also need the start and end dates of the journey, the type of operation, so cabotage or international carriage, the type of transport, be it goods or passenger, the vehicle registration of the vehicle and trailer, the contact details for your transport manager or another contact person in the organization. And this is to do with the EU looking for proof of documentation. Now, the driver will also need to make sure that they are carrying certain documents whilst they're on posting. And the company must ensure that the driver carries the following which they must make available when requested to do so at a roadside check. So a copy of the declaration of posting, so either electronically on their handheld device or their mobile phone or tablet, or a hard copy. And we can see here on the right hand side, I have a copy of one here. And what the European authorities are looking for, and the RSA in our case, is this QR code. Now, the QR code is going to be issued and that will be scanned by the relevant authorities, which will lead them back to the portal to provide them with all the information. The driver will also require proof that the transport operation takes place in the host member state. In our case, we're probably going to be using an electronic waybill, so a CMR, and clear proof required by law with all the mandatory particulars in the case of cabotage. So where you would be carrying out cabotage, there will be certain documentation required, and this is the same for this. So they'll also need the tachograph data, and in particular, the national symbols of the member state where the driver was engaged in international road transport or cabotage. In other words, the driver will have to enter the nationality of the countries that he's passing through in the tachograph, and I'll get to that in a second. So from the 2nd of February, enforcement authorities will be able to ask you as the operator for certain amount of information. They could look for copies of the documents that the driver must carry in line with cabotage, and documents about the driver's pay during the journey. So they might look for their contract of employment, timesheets, pay slips, anything to back up that you have paid the driver accordingly. You must upload the information you're asked for via the IMI system within 8 weeks of being requested to do so. And failure to do so will result in you receiving a premises inspection by the Workplace Relations Commission and the RSA. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, drivers must record the crossing of a border on their tachograph. So how do they do this? Well, first of all, they enter the symbol of the country after crossing the member state border, and this should be done at the first stop. So in other words, the nearest possible place at the border or after the border once it's safe to pull in to do so. If the crossing of the border of a member state takes place on a ferry or a train, the driver should enter the symbol of the country at the port or station of arrival. And on vehicles fitted with analog tachographs, this information should be handwritten on the record sheet, preferably under the inner time dial, and by way of a manual entry in vehicles fitted with a digital tachograph. Now, recording border crossings will not be necessary in vehicles fitted with the Generation 2 smart tachographs from 2023, as this will be done automatically. So, a quick summary of what we've covered so far. Operators carrying out international operations in the EU or cabotage operations from the 2nd of February must post their drivers to all the countries they will be operating in on the European Commission Road Transport Posting Declaration portal. To do this, they must first create a Euro login, and this will be done on initial setup, and you will be prompted to do this. The posting must be generated prior to the departure of the driver to the country they will be operating in. The posting can be from 1 day to 6 months. Now, a word of warning for this. If you post the driver for 6 months, the authorities can request evidence for that 6-month period. If the driver is only going to be posted for 3 days, only post them for 3 days. Then the authorities can only look for 3 days worth of information. Now, the operator must ensure that the driver is provided with a copy of the posting declaration, either by email or a printed hard copy, and fines can be issued to the driver for failure to produce the documentation. That's really, really important. The operator must be able to provide the requesting authorities documents to evidence the posting, i.e. CMRs, tachograph records, pay records, driver's contract of employment, and these can be requested up to 1 year after the posting has been completed. It is the operator's and not the driver's responsibility to complete the posting declaration, and postings can be withdrawn, updated, or edited through the portal if the situation changes. And an example would be the vehicle breaks down and you need to replace the vehicle with another vehicle, or possibility that you might change the dates of the posting. So what we're going to have a look at now is we're going to have a look at actually using the system. And what I'm going to share with you now is the online portal. Now, when you click on the link to the portal, and we will have the link for the IMI portal on our own website in the very, very near future, you will be able to go into this, and the first thing you'll do is scroll down. It gives you a welcome, and we can see the welcome here, and explains some things at the top. You will scroll down, and then what it will do is it will give you two options. It will give you, I don't have a company account, so you can create an account. And this is the first thing you're going to do. So you're going to click on create an account. Now, I've already created an account. And the reason I'm not going to go through this on this live demonstration is because it bounces around several times for emails looking for confirmation, and it sends you that confirmation emails. So it's a little bit time consuming. Now, when I say time consuming, I mean 5 or 10 minutes, not too long. Now, in this case, I already have a company account, so I'm going to click go to my account. Now, we can see here, this has brought me into my dashboard. And we can see here, we are on the training site, but it mirrors the live site. And we can see we have a dashboard in front of us. What we have is the road transport posting declaration information at the top. We have my name and my organization. And I didn't put a picture in because I'm just not that pretty. The language that we're using, so in this case, English. And again, there are every language in the EU is available on this. We will also have a little alerts button. We can see here I've got 5 alerts. And then down the side, we have our tabs. But before we explain them, I want to have a look at the dashboard itself. So I can see I have draft declarations, so ones that I've created but not yet submitted. Declarations that are going to expire within the next 7 days. So that keeps me up to speed with what declarations I either have to renew, refresh, or create new ones, or just ensure that the driver's back in the country. Expired declarations, so declarations that were not renewed. New requests, and this is going to be from the European authorities, and they can request information. We're going to see that later on. Requests for documents. So this is if you have a request from the European country that you were traveling in, and they request documents. This is like a countdown timer. So these are documents that are due in the next 14 days. As we said, you had 8 weeks to provide the documents, but this is just a final warning. And then overdue requests. So if you have failed to provide the proper documentation, you will have an alert here, and it's an overdue requests. In this case, we would ideally never want to see that with overdue requests, because that means we could be possibly in line for a fine. As we scroll down here, just some nice to have pictorial dashboards. So we have drivers, and we can see here with a declaration, I have 8% of my drivers with a declaration and 92% without. And we can see here, I have 1 submitted, 1 withdrawn, and 4 expired. And again, my request for documents would appear here if there was a request. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is our alerts. And every time you do something on the system generates a like an imprint or a fingerprint. So if you want to know who updated the document last, you can go back in, or you want to see who the last person in operating the system was. You can go in and check all this. So first thing we're going to do, we click home, and that will bring us back to our dashboard. The next thing we're going to show you now is, I'm going to skip declarations. I'm going to come back to that. I want to show you drivers. So we click on drivers, and it gives me a list of my drivers. And we can see we have multiple pages full of drivers. I can search for drivers by name by typing in my name here. And if I want to edit any of my information, I can click here and I can edit my driver's information. What that would be, and really, really important, a change of email address, change of phone number, change of passport number, change of CPC card number, change of driver's license number, this sort of information. Or potentially in the case of a female employee, perhaps you might be updating if that lady got married and changed her name. Then we have a delete button. Now, you cannot delete a driver if that driver has a posting within the last year. So you can only delete drivers that are past that period where the authorities can request details from them. Now, as I scroll up, I can see add a new driver or upload drivers. So if we click add a new driver, if I'm going to add single drivers, well, then I can just click that and I can input the information as I go down. And it's important that we have all this information to hand. Now, they do provide a template. So as we see here, internal reference number, first name. Now, this one here, non-Latin name. In other words, if they have letters from, say, the Greek alphabet, that sort of stuff, that's where you would put that. But to be fair, in most cases, we're just going to be adding in the correct spelling. And then we continue down. And again, it's all standard information, email address, driving license number, card number, identification document. In this case, we're going to put passport number, issue dates, issuing country, the driver's address, their employment contract, and the applicable law. We'll click on information, and this will let us select the country of applicable law. So that's uploading drivers individually. If we, this is the one we're going to be using really at the start. We want to upload all our drivers at once. And what we're going to be doing is clicking on this. And what that will do is it will give us a template. Okay. And when we download the template, it's in Excel. Okay. And we complete all of the information that was already in the adding the driver singularly, but we complete it on the Excel template. And then we do our standard, either drag and drop it in or click browse, find where you'd save the document and enter it in. And once we've uploaded that, all your drivers will be available to you. And as you can see here, we just click upload. Now that we've had a look at uploading drivers, I want to show you your user management. Okay. Now, in a company, you potentially have multiple users of this account, because again, it's going to be potentially, if you have a lot of drivers going onto the continent, you are going to have maybe several operators using this system. Very, very straightforward. The manager or transport manager or whoever's adminning the system will go in, they will click invite user. That will then send an email to that user. And what that will do then is allow the user to set up an EU login and log into your account. Okay. A word of warning that they have not sorted out with this yet. There is no hierarchy of users. Okay. So when you're uploading people or you're inviting people to use this system, very, very important that you trust them, because there is a not so much what I would call a glitch in the system, but just something to watch out for. Anybody can delete any other users off the system. So if you got a disgruntled employee, they could just delete everyone off the system. So they are working on an amendment to this system, which will have a hierarchy of users, so the transport manager cannot be deleted off the system. Now, the next thing we're going to have a look at is requests. As we said, when we get a request from the European Authority, it will appear in requests, and they will ask you for specific information. The system will automatically translate it into English in our case, or if you're sending information, you do not have to provide a translation for them. It's up to them to translate it on their end. Okay, so now we're going to go into the actual declaration itself. So as I click on declarations, that shows me all of the declarations that I have ever created or I am working on. So we can see here I have expired declarations, and we can see here one was for Belgium, one was for Austria, one was for Poland, and one was for Bulgaria. So the last one I created was for the UK, and we can go in on that and we can update it or edit it as we see fit. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a declaration. So the first thing we do is go to the top and we click create declaration. Now, sorry, that has never come up before. If the driver is not present on the list, go to the driver section and add one. Fair enough, that's a new thing. So first thing we do, we select a driver that we're going to send, or select a country. In my case, we're going to send it to Denmark. Select the start date. So we will say tomorrow. Select an end date. And as I said, you can create these for up to 6 months. However, it's best if you create them for only the time required. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say he's going out now tomorrow and he will be back on Monday. The type of operation. So we're going to we're going to do some cabotage, and we're going to carry goods. Now, in this section, we can upload, we can add vehicles to this. So I am going to add, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 5, 6, 9. And again, I can add several vehicles to this. They say you can add up to 1,000+ vehicles on it. However, in our case, we're just going to add the one. Depending on your operation, if you think your driver could potentially drive several vehicles over that period, well, then you can add those in. So in this case, I'm going to pick Amanda as my driver. And what happens is the system, because I've uploaded all Amanda's details already, the system recognizes Amanda and she has all her details already in there. So you can see her name, last name, date of birth, her email address. And this is the only one you can kind of change in there if you want to change her email address. Again, driving license number, driver card, document ID type, and again, all of that detail. So it saves us having to enter it. Then our company information. So again, that's all pre-lodged in there because we've already entered it at the start. And our transport manager, because they would have asked us to input that at the start as well. Now, what it does is it gives us the option, because we always have to have a contact person. It gives us the option to select the transport manager or the contact person as the transport manager, or if the transport manager is on leave, or if you want to add somebody else to contact, you could add their details in here. But for our case, and to make life easy, we'll click transport manager and it pre-populates all the details. Then we have create or cancel. And in our case, we're going to create it. So it asks us, do we confirm the creation of the declaration? Yes. And now we can see it's created in draft. So if I had several drivers going out and I can create the draft documents, but I'm not going to release them until I get maybe confirmation that the load was ready to go. So I click on draft. And then what that does is it brings me into the declaration. So it generates a automatic number here. And this is like an MRN for those doing customs work. It's just a generic number that identifies that document. So what we're supposed to do is have a look down through it, double check all our information that we're happy with it. Okay, so we get all the way to the bottom, and then we submit our declaration. And once we click submit, this is gone to the country that we want it to go to. Okay, are you sure we want to submit the declaration? Yes, we are. And now we can see it's submitted. It's at this point we can go in, and we mentioned earlier on that the driver has to have a copy of this. So we have several options. When we go back in, we can withdraw the declaration if for some reason the driver becomes sick or unable to travel. We can edit the declaration if needs be. We can copy the declaration, and we would use copying the declaration if I'm going to several different countries en route and I'm going to be doing pickups and drop-offs in them, and I need to duplicate this information, but I don't want to have to make up one for each country. So I copy the declaration and change the country on it. I can print the declaration if I'm going to give a hard copy to my driver, or if I want to print it for my own internal files. And now we are going to send the declaration by email to the driver. But most importantly, what this didn't have in draft, but it does have now, is a QR code, which identifies this document to the relevant authorities. Once you click send direct declaration by email, it confirms that that's who we wanted to send it to. So that's Amanda's email, and we click send. Do we want to continue? Yes, we do. So that's now gone to Amanda. What we can have a look is if I click on print declaration, it creates a PDF copy, and I can see exactly what the printout looks like. Or I can print it out and save it, or I can save it as a PDF to my own records. So we can see here our number, which matches to the QR code, our last update, our submission date, and all our other details. And again, driver details, identification document, address, and this information now is all available to the enforcement authorities at the side of the road. Now, back to our declarations. If for some reason the driver becomes ill or has some sort of incident or some sort of family emergency or whatever it happens to be, that they no longer are available to do this job. So they're no longer going to be driving the vehicle and they're no longer going to be posted to Europe. You can withdraw the declaration. And it's a simple matter of just clicking withdraw. But what I want to do is show you the declarations live first. So I'm going to click on declaration and we can see it submitted. So again, I can copy the declaration from here if I need to generate 2 or 3 more of the same one for the same driver for the same period, or I can edit it. If the driver is en route and you have him posted for say 4 days and you find out that one of the loads won't be ready and you have to leave him out there for 7 days, you can go in and edit the declaration at this end. You will not need to edit it at the driver's end or send it to the driver, because the QR code links it to the system, which will automatically show the relevant authorities that it has been updated. So we'll have a quick look. We go back to home and we can see now that I have 1 declaration that will expire within the next 7 days. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is the help button, your account button. So we'll click account. And what we can see here is our company information. So if, for example, our company changes address or it changes transport manager, we can edit that in here. So if our transport manager leaves and we hire a new transport manager, we can change that here. And we just click edit. If we require any help for any reason, we can click the help button. And when we come down, we have a list of frequently asked questions, but we also have, and very, very useful, we have video tutorials. So you can click, and if you forget how to do anything, click in here, and they have a list of videos that you can play to help remind you of how to do something. So you can see they're not very long, 1 minute 27, 2 minutes 35, 1 minute 27, very, very short videos that will help you along the way. Now, so I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to hand it back to Aidan.
Great, thanks very much, Paul. Very informative there. I think we have a number of questions there, Paul. I might put them through. I posted a bit of information there from the Road Safety Authority website on the chat that has a Q&A, frequently asked questions, and we're going to have a link with that on our website, as well as other FAQs as well for people. But one of the questions there was if somebody loads in Ireland and just does a single leg directly to, say, Germany, for instance, with 1 drop off for unloading, must this be posted?
No, if a driver loads in Ireland, goes to Germany and unloads and picks up 1 more load in Germany and drives directly back to Ireland, they do not need to be posted.
Okay. And likewise, transit through countries or whatever doesn't need to be posted either.
No, transiting does not need to be posted. So if you are going to Greece, we'll say, and you're going to do cabotage in Greece and come all the way back up again, well, you do not need to be posted for any of the countries that you travel through because you're transiting them. However, you do need to be posted to Greece.
Okay. Is the UK included in the EU for the purpose of this? Yeah. And what is the purpose? So, the way you have to make changes on your tachograph for cross-border operations, does that apply crossing the Irish border?
It does. Oh, sorry, of the border in Ireland.
Yeah.
Officially, there is no border in Ireland for that. We don't need to do anything once you're on the island of Ireland. So you have free movement on the island of Ireland.
Good. Okay. There's another question come in here. How many accounts should one company have? They've a third-party haulier. Should it be the local site setting an account up, or the overall business setting up 1 master account?
I would say that would be up to the individual. What you can also do is have 1 person operating several accounts, or 1 company operating several accounts. So again, you could potentially use this to operate large companies with different depots. So you can have and this again goes back to that area where I said about trusting the person operating the system. But you can have several accounts. Yes, one person can have several accounts.
Okay. And then another one here is that if you have a number of different collections in different countries for loading home, so you go out, you perhaps drop off directly into Germany, but then you make a collection in Holland and 2 collections in Belgium and straight back to Ireland, is this to be posted?
Yes, that's international freight. Yes, that has to be posted.
Okay. Good. Okay. There was a question earlier, Paul, just in relation to what's the definition of empty load is. Is it basically if you know, packaging and pallets are just in the back of the trailer, does that define the load as empty because there's no declarations required on it?
That will kind of fall in under the customs area, if you know what I mean. So you're going to make what's called an oral declaration to customs, reference empty packaging. So that would technically be declared as empty. So packaging, that would be the pallets. If you ship stuff out in specialized refrigerated boxes and those boxes are coming back empty to be refilled, that vehicle is deemed empty under customs laws. And no, it's empty.
Well, look, thanks very much, everybody. As I said, we're here to help. It is a new system. I know it seems like it can be another administrative burden, but it standardizes the process across Europe. I think those of you familiar with international transport would know how efficient the French tend to be and the Germans at times, and indeed the Dutch. It is going to be implemented, I think, at varying degrees of severity, but it does standardize the process, which I think is helpful and is certainly welcomed from our perspective, given the complications with dealing with the French over the last number of years, particularly having to establish agents and pay per driver and so on. So it will take a little bit of getting used to. Certainly the Road Safety Authority here and the Department of Transport are obviously looking to establish more information in relation to this, and as we get it, we will send it out to everybody. Any questions or queries, you know where we are, keep in touch. And as I said, this is the first in a series of briefings that we are going to do on the various different mobility packages, and we'll be looking at operator licensing changes and operator licensing for vans in a couple of weeks. So that's it. Thanks very much for attending, and chat to you soon. Thanks again, Paul.